Welcome back, everybody. It's Thursday, August 14th, 2025. Born on this date in 1958, pro wrestler Bobby Eaton of Huntsville. Now, you might remember his work with Mid-South Wrestling, NWA, or WCW, particularly as one half of the Midnight Express tag team. He'd finish him off with a flying leg drop off the top rope that he called the Alabama Jam. He passed away in 2021. And in 1977, former major leaguer Juan Pierre of Mobile. Today, we're going to look ahead to high school football season and talk a little about what it means in Alabama culturally and some of the storylines going into the season. AL.com's Ben Thomas will be in the studio for the last part of the episode for that. First, we'll talk about bodies missing organs without families' consent and a live World War II era mortar shell found at Redstone Arsenal. I'm Mike Morgan, and we're down in Alabama.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets, with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
Jefferson County Circuit Judge Pat Ballard has denied a motion by UAB to dismiss another case of organs being removed and kept without a family's permission, reports AL.com's Ivana Harinkyu. Matthew Harrell died unexpectedly in March 2023 while playing basketball at the federal prison in Talladega. The inmate's family was told his body would undergo an autopsy. The family, while looking into Harrell's death later, say they found out that UAB had kept several of his organs. This isn't the only case in Alabama being argued currently on bodies that were returned from UAB with missing hearts or other organs. In some cases, the organs were never found. Look for the ruling to be appealed. As Judge Ballard pointed out, this is how we develop the law. UAB lawyer Jay Ezell said federal law allows prison wardens to order autopsies without the family's permission and that organs are typically retained. He also said that the Alabama legislature has yet to establish a way for these civil cases to be brought. Construction workers digging a sidewalk found an old unexploded mortar shell Tuesday morning at Redstone Arsenal, reports AL.com's Coyote Crown. Now, that's not a complete shock given the ordnance testing that took place at the Arsenal during World War II. And a spokesperson said that the 4.2 millimeter white phosphorus mortar round was indeed a World War II era relic. Redstone officials assure us that they are prepared for such a discovery and that protocols exist should the situations arise. What that entailed Tuesday was clearing out a nearby building, establishing a safety perimeter, posting a monitoring team, calling in an explosive ordnance disposal unit from Fort Benning, Georgia, and then detonating the round in a controlled manner. Rush Propst is back on the sideline this fall, reports AL.com's Ben Thomas and Thomas Ashworth. Propst is the high school football coach who rose to fame as the leader of Hoover High's incredible run during the early years of this century. He was 110-16 with 5 state championships during 9 seasons at Hoover. Now, his career has taken him to several schools in Alabama and Georgia, leaving controversies and the occasional state title in his wake. After spending more than a decade in Georgia, winning a pair of titles along the way, he returned to Alabama prep football in 2023 as the associate head coach at Coosa Christian in Gadsden. However, he was quickly hired to become head coach over at Pell City, where his only team went 1-9 with a forfeit loss over a transfer violation. Now, there was an effort to fire him from Pell City at a school board meeting. That effort failed in the immediate sense, but Probst stepped down 2 weeks later. Meanwhile, the school he had been with very briefly, Coosa Christian of Class 1A, played for a state title. And then last year, it landed on probation by the Alabama High School Athletic Association because of violations. Cutting a deal with the AHSAA, Coosa has suspended head coach Mark O'Brien, but will be eligible for this season's playoffs. Enter Rush Probst. In O'Brien's stead, Probst has confirmed that he will be the interim head coach at Coosa during the 25 season. Now, coincidentally, that story broke yesterday afternoon, right after I sat down for a conversation with AL.com high school sports editor Ben Thomas. Now, that conversation covered a bunch of other storylines and thoughts about the upcoming prep football season, which starts next week, by the way. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have that conversation. Y'all stay with us. All right, thanks for staying with us, everybody. Now, for a lot of folks, the long nightmare known as the football offseason is just about over. And in Alabama, most high schools, and Ben can correct me on this, most high schools crank up and kick off about a week from now. So I thought it'd be a good time to see if AL.com high school sports editor Ben Thomas would stop by and help gear up our minds for the season. And he took us up on it. So, Ben, it's great to have you back.
Hey, good to be here, Ike. Yeah, everybody starts up in every sport, really. Next Thursday, the 21st. Pretty good selection of spring games this week. Or not spring games, jamboree games, practice games. But everybody pretty much can play they can play, and most of them do. Starting next week, the 21st or 22nd, there's some good games on Thursday, and then pretty full schedule on Friday, and then we're off to the races, Ike.
Now, one thing that's probably been clear to a lot of longtime listeners, I'm a baseball guy when it comes to the sport, but there is absolutely nothing like fall and hearing those high school bands warming up and the sounds of the stadium. I mean, it's goosebumps like little else in the sports world.
Yeah, I still get that. I don't get to go to as many games as I used to because of what I do on Friday nights with Football High Live. But when I get to go, sometimes on Thursday, it's just that you get that different atmosphere. That kind of that coaches like to say it's the last level of pure sports. Before we get into the NIL and all that stuff in college. And that atmosphere of whatever they're grilling, whatever hot dogs or hamburgers they're grilling or serving. And in our newsletter that comes out every Thursday, you can subscribe to that in Birmingham, Mobile, or Huntsville if you haven't already. We did a poll last week, which was, what was your favorite part? What's your favorite part of Friday Night Lights? And, is it the actual game, or is it the food? Is it the band? Is it the halftime show? Is it just the spirit? And I think the actual game came in like 4th out of 5. So that's just a part of high school sports. Those rare places where you go in the state, like Jackson or Fife, where everything shuts down on Friday nights at 5 o'clock, and the drugstore has the window painted up, "Go Aggies" or whatever. I mean, that's just so unique, and it's the thing that'll make high school sports always unique, I think.
Yeah. You talk about the last pure sport or sports atmosphere. It's also just pure Americana, is what I love about it.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Jackson. That's one of my favorite places to go because their stadium. They're in Highway 43 in South Alabama, is basically in the middle of a neighborhood. And if you kick an extra point too hard, you're going to land on somebody's porch. I mean, it's just that type of environment. But yeah, it is pure Americana, and it seems like they start earlier than we ever did when we were in school, like. And but
it's crazy.
But it also seems like, unfortunately, as soon as they get started, you turn your head and you're almost done for the season. So enjoy it. We got to enjoy it while we got it.
Yeah, I think all the years, Jimmy Buffett talked about summers and winters scattering like splinters. It does when you get older, man. And that is kind of segues me into this. Now, Ben, y'all, is one of the 50 legends of sports writing in Alabama, according to the Alabama Sports Writers Association. I wanted, and I think he's just getting started. He's like me, he's a kid. But Ben, how many years have you been covering sports in Alabama? Now, I'm talking sports editor and everything that you've done.
Yeah, they ran out of guys. Like they didn't. I think they had 49, so they who can we stick in here? And they stuck me in there, and I'm appreciative of that. But yeah, so I've been doing it since 1990, around different parts of the state. Started in Gadsden with the great Jimmy Smothers, who's also obviously a 50 legend and a Hall of Famer. Um, Moved down to Montgomery and was sports editor there, and then now I've been with AL.com. This little plaque on my wall says 18 years of service with AL.com. I'm down here in the Mobile Daphne area, but covering the state, statewide stuff. So it's been a good run. I've been most places in the state, and I've done a lot of different things. And I came back to high school sports in 2013 when our group made the big transition, Ike. And I tell you what, it was a blessing for me because it's been the best. What is that? 12 years of my career, I think.
Yeah, and if you don't mind setting down the modesty for just a second, let me say that we have all benefited, and I love the opinion stuff that you've written as much as anything, because that's what covering this stuff a lot of times is about, or the stories beyond the scorecard. So love what you do.
Thank you, Ike. Yeah, it's been my pleasure, and when I was appointed to this business, I was just on the desk in Mobile when everything happened. I left Montgomery and my blood pressure was rising and my staff was decreasing. I needed something different. And then I got down here and everything happened, and they said, "Hey, we need a high school writer." I said, "Hey, I can do that." So I've been blessed to be a part of that and still be on this team for as long as I have been.
Yes, I understand the blood pressure thing. We worked for the same company at a different time, but we'll get on beyond that. Let's talk a little bit about the storylines going into the 2025 high school football season. What you have your ear to the ground? What's going on out there?
Yeah, it's going to be. We had our preseason rankings, the Sports Writers Association, last week, I believe, and not surprisingly, I think 6 out of the 7 AHSAA champions were number one. This wasn't a reclass year, so that's kind of how it happens. We try and find out information about every team, but it takes a couple of weeks to kind of let everything settle and see, all right, who is really the best team. Obviously, you got to start with Thompson, I think, across the state. I mean, they've won, 5 out of the last 6 Class 7A titles now.
Yeah.
They won last year again. They lost 3 games last year, believe it or not, but all of them, I think, were by 1 point, and all of them in overtime. They play a very tough schedule. But what Mark Freeman has done, not just there, but at Spanish Fort before he got there, at Bessemer Academy in the old days, he wouldn't like me saying the old days, but the truth hurts. Is unbelievable. I think a crazy story that we're seeing is his quarterback, Trent Seaborn, is only going into his junior year, and he has already started 31 Class 7A games. Barring injury and barring something crazy and Thompson not making a deep playoff run in these next 2 years, he's going to start probably almost 50 games at quarterback in the 7A level, which is, that's going to be a record that's probably never going to be broken. So he'll be in the Mr. Football conversation because Mark Freeman does such a good job with quarterbacks. He's one of the top recruits in the state. We just had our best in Bama, top 50 overall recruits. So I'm always watching Thompson. They'll play some tough games early. Hoover in the market where you are, Ike, is always going to be a big story. Chip English is now the full-time coach after being an interim coach last year. And then they open with IMG Academy, which is not a great opener for them because IMG's got a lot of national players. But those 2 teams, that'll be an interesting story. And then, there's good storylines, I think, really throughout. Parker is an inner city Birmingham school that won a state championship last year, has a lot of talent. Saraland has played in 3 straight 6A titles. They've had 3 straight Mr. Football winners, which has never been done before. Now, 2 of them were Ryan Williams.
That's right.
Who's now at Alabama, obviously, and last year KJ Lacey, his quarterback, won. So, is it possible they could win a 4? So that's just off the top of my head a couple of things I got going on, but it's there's a lot more than that, obviously, that's happening.
Yeah, well, are there any coaching carousel things of note? I do know you did a story that Philip Rivers, who's really kind of a veteran prep coach, we know he's done with the NFL now.
Officially, yeah. I mean, I think he's been done. This will be his 5th year at St. Michael Catholic here in Fairhope, or not too far down the road from me. His son Gunner is a junior. He's probably going to be the state's all-time leading passer before his career's over. He's already passed for over 7,000 yards. The record's just slightly over 10,000. So that's a really cool story. But, Philip, when I think people maybe misunderstood and thought this was going to be a hobby for Philip when he retired for the NFL. That was never going to be the case. He always wanted to be a high school football coach. It was just a matter of where he was going to do it at. And it just so happened they made some inroads down here in South Alabama, got to know some people. Obviously, he's a big Catholic. So St. Michael obviously is a Catholic school in Baldwin County, so that just kind of worked out that they're here. But he told me, I thought it was really interesting. He told me just recently that the first 2 years he was out, when he was head coach at St. Michael, there really was a chance he was going to go back. He was never going to go back and play a full season, but had somebody called him after the high school season and said, "Hey, we got an injury. Can you come for December and the playoffs?" There was a chance that would happen. He told me he was actually putting on the pads and throwing the ball around for 2 years. But I think for the last 2 years, he knew probably it wasn't going to happen. And it just turned out, you mentioned earlier this summer, he officially retired, made an announcement with the Chargers, signed a 1-day contract, and retired with the Chargers. And so he's eligible for the Hall of Fame next year, Ike. And I think I don't know if he'll get there next year, but I mean, he's among the all-time leaders in passing in a lot of different categories. I think he gets there eventually, which would be a cool story for us to write. But it's a good story. He is in it now. I'm telling you, he is as into a game as any coach I've ever been around. Just like he was. You've seen the old videos of him taunting opponents. Now he ain't cussing anybody, Ike. He doesn't cuss, but he is on the officials from start to finish, and he is into the game. And I remember I asked him, when he first started this, if he'd been asked to be a color commentator like a Tony Romo or, those guys. And he said he did have some conversations about that, but he said, I just can't see myself being somewhere that I'm not having any impact on the scoreboard. I'm just too competitive not to have an impact on the scoreboard. So it's been fun following his career. And we'll see. They made the semifinals last year, just couldn't beat Jackson. And that may be the case again this year, but they are a team on the rise for sure.
I'd have loved to have seen him go to win a Super Bowl with a team, as a coach from an Alabama high school. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly had some runs there when he was with the Chargers for sure. And then they had 1 year at the end with the Colts, and they made the playoffs that year. But it would have been fun to see him there, and it's been good to get to know him. He's a good guy, really competitive. Yeah. He texts me sometimes about high school stuff out of the blue, which I think, hey man, Philip Rivers just texted me. That's pretty cool. But he's just a high school football coach and a pretty good one.
A man who loves the game. That's what you love to see. Yes. It's not about the show; it's about the game.
And he's mentioned a couple of times. He tells me all the time that he tells his players, look, don't look forward. Enjoy the moment. Don't get ahead of yourself. You got 10 Friday nights a year, a couple more if you make the playoffs, and then you look back on it and it's gone. I mean, he remembers, all these times at NC State and all the time in the pros. He still remembers, playing football for his dad at Athens High School. And I think a coach once told me, I don't remember who it was, but once told me that, if I see if I can get this right, that I've never had any player who didn't play football say, boy, I'm glad I didn't play, but I've had a lot of players say, boy, I'm glad I did play. I mean, it's just that type of game and impact if you're playing it. So it's a cool sport to cover.
Y'all did another a survey. You mentioned one earlier, but you had the players in each part of the state pick their favorite stadium to go play in. And it's funny because you've already mentioned a couple of those schools in this conversation. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? A little bit about
Sure.
what the players thought?
Sure. So we did. This was something new we did this year. I actually drove to Huntsville. I live in South Alabama, but I actually drove to Huntsville to be a part of their media day. And then we have Dennis Victory and Mike Perrin doing Birmingham, and myself and Thomas Ashworth down here and in Huntsville. And we decided, hey, we're gonna have a piece of paper and we're gonna ask these players like 5 questions, just kind of fun questions, to see what they would say. And we got some pretty good answers. The question we ask, who has the coolest uniform that you play? Not named your school. Like we have cool uniforms. I don't want a bunch of that. So we asked that.
Right.
What's the coolest road stadium you play in? Who's the best player you've ever played against? That'll be coming out next week on AL.com. We asked them about NIL, and we did a big story on that. And that was kind of surprising because there was a lot more. We asked, should high school players in Alabama be paid? And it was yes. I mean, the clear response was yes, but it wasn't as clear as I thought it was going to be. I think it was like 140 yes votes to 77 no votes. And a lot of the no votes were, I think it's going to ruin high school football if people are getting paid. So we thought that was very interesting. And then we asked them, this question didn't really fly very well. I have to think of a different one for next year. But we asked them, if you started your own high school team, what would your nickname be? Well, we meant like a team nickname, but a lot of people didn't get that. And they said, well, they'd call me Peanut Butter because I'm sticky on the wide receivers or whatever. Well, it's not really what I was looking for, but I appreciate the effort. But it was fun. We had fun with it. We're in the middle of that now. This week we're doing the coolest uniforms people have. I did the Coastal Alabama, South Alabama, whatever you want to call it, the other day. Gulf Shores was the winner because they have about 10 different uniform combinations.
Wow.
And our stadiums last week, we did our stadiums. Saraland was the winner down here. I think Thompson was the winner in Birmingham, and I think maybe Milton Frank in Huntsville. But it was cool.
It was.
It was cool to see. I actually called the Saraland coach, Jeff Kelly, who, people who watch this will be familiar with Jeff, not just from his time at Saraland, but his time in the NFL and at Southern Miss. And I told him, I was like, hey, you were the winner of the coolest stadium.
We mentioned the 50 legends list earlier in the conversation. And speaking of that, I'll mention one we lost this year because he was such a great guy, Reuben Grant. I believe most of his career was with the Birmingham Post-Herald. I worked with him at the Birmingham News. And they say this about a lot of people, that their light shines, and Reuben was a pastor in addition to being a sports writer. Reuben brought something positive to the table. This is crazy, but every single time I saw him, I never knew him well, but he spoke to me like a good friend from the start. Ben, you got to work with Reuben, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I not as a colleague, but as guys that were just covering high school sports for different agencies. I worked with him a good bit. He always had a smile on his face. We were always glad to see each other, even though we didn't see each other a lot in the last couple of years, me being down here and him being in Montgomery. But like you mentioned, he was a pastor. He would send out daily or weekly devotionals to a bunch of people. I was on that list. He won a Herbie Kirby Award. That's the award the sports writers give for the best story of the year, with Paul Feinbaum on the story they did on the Huntsville basketball player that went to Alabama. Just a great guy. I mean, my favorite story, my story that I wrote a column about was he and I were together in Jacksonville covering a regional tournament at Jacksonville State one year. This is way back. This is when I was in Gadsden, and that's been a while. And Reuben, I'm sure, was working for the Post-Herald, but we were covering a basketball game, and it was a school in Birmingham, and two Birmingham schools, and I can't remember who they were, but during the game, one of the teams was up pretty big, and the players, like during a stoppage, the guy walked over to the press table and said, "Mr. Grant, I just want to tell you I appreciate your work." And of course,
Wow.
we just laughed at it. We laughed at it, and the guy went back. Well, Altamont was the team that was playing, and they were up big. Um, and then from that point on, the other team went on a massive run
Ah.
and ended up winning the game. And so I just mercifully gave Ruben a hard time, and I was like, "Ruben, it's 10-0 since he appreciated your work. Ruben, it's 20-2 since your work was appreciated." And indeed, they ended up losing the game. But from then on, every time we saw each other, the conversation either started or ended or both with, "I really I really admire your work." And so that was a thing for both of us. But yeah, just a great guy. I know he was doing some freelancing work in the later years, and I would run into him occasionally. But a legend with the Post Herald and high school sports. I mean, the
Yeah.
people around Birmingham, you can't find many that don't know him, and I haven't found any. Craig Stevens and I did the story on him when he died, the obituary for AL.com, and I mean, it wasn't hard to find people who said good things about him. Anybody you ask who knew Ruben had positive things to say about him, and hate that we lost him. I'll miss him, but what a legacy he left in so many different ways.
Yeah, yeah. One of the faces that so many people see, especially around this time of year, with the when he was a sports writer. Well, yeah, that great stuff from Jacksonville. That's sports writer humor right there. Are we leaving anything on the table for this high school season we want to mention ahead of time?
I think it's gonna, yeah. I mean, I think it's gonna be a fun ride. I mean, one of the big topics right now, Ike, is the transfer situation, the non-compliant transfer situation.
Mhm.
There've been some research done by that on a couple of coaches that maybe there's some clusters of transfers going to 4 or 5 particular schools in the state, and so the HSAA has formed a task force committee to look into that and see if there's a problem, and if there is a problem, see if there's anything they can do about it. They've had a couple of meetings. In fact, I think they had their second meeting this week. One interesting thing they're doing is the HSA uses a system called Dragonfly, which is where everybody supposedly registers their players, their rosters, their schedules in all sports. And I understand now that there's a column now where you have to designate if this player was a student athlete transfer or not. And that doesn't mean just because they transfer doesn't mean anything illegal happened.
Mhm.
But if certain schools were getting more than transfers than most others, is that a competitive advantage for them? So I think that's what they're looking at. That's going to be a storyline. It's been a storyline. It's going to continue to be a storyline as we go
Yeah.
forward. So that'll be a big issue. And I think the other thing I'd mention is I think on AL.com, we're doing a lot of different stuff, a lot of new stuff this summer. One thing I'll mention is we just got through, Randy Kennedy did, I think I mentioned it earlier, something we're calling our Best in Bama list. This is a recruiting list of the top 50 players in Alabama, regardless of class, which we think is very unique. Most people do it by class, but don't combine classes, which is what we're doing. So we're ranking, how does this junior rank against this senior Alabama commit or whoever? He just finished those. You can find them on AL.com. And the unique thing about that, Ike, is that we're going to update that weekly after games. So, like every Thursday, you'll be able to see, oh, this guy moved up from 10 to 1 in our prospect list or whatever. So I think that's really going to be a cool feature this year for us that we're doing new. And then next week, as the games start, we'll have all of our normal stuff, our picks and our games to watch and schedules and features and games of the week and on all that thing. And of course, on Friday, we'll have our Football High Live, which has been one of the more popular things we've done over the last decade, which is our running total of what's happening on Friday night all over the state. We started about 6:30. It runs till about 1:30 or 2, or until I just can't keep my eyes open any longer.
That's right.
Along with our coverage of games and photos and everything else we're doing. So we have a lot of good stuff coming. I hope you're a subscriber to AL.com, and also hope you subscribe to our newsletter, which I think is a pretty cool deal on Thursdays.
Yeah, I will leave some links in show notes to help folks navigate that who want to see it. So, Ben Thomas, thank you very much for coming on the show again. Love talking to you, man.
Ike, it's been a pleasure as always, man. Holler at me when you need a gift drops out and you need somebody to appear with you.
Hey.
That could be a last resort at any time.
The door's open, man. Open invite. We appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody out there for listening to us. We're going to be back here bright and early in the morning. Until then, as always, y'all come by and see what we're working on anytime you can at al.com.